Hi guys, and welcome back to Tabletop Republic. Tom here with the next painting tutorial, and today we are going to look at this guy. This is a Galadhrim Warrior, an elf spearman otherwise, from the Games Workshop Lord of the Rings range, but I will be using these for my Kings of War elf army, hence the square base, if that's confusing for you, because in Kings of War we're all rank and file, not a sort of loose skirmish formation. You'll also note that I've already based it. I've already got this sort of sand and gravel glued on the base here. The reason why I've done that before I started painting the miniature is just so that when I hit it with the spray primer, the primer spray will sort of act as a secondary sealant on that basing material and just keep it in place. And all that basing is this Army Painter Brown Battleground gravel mixed with a little bit of Morecambe Bay's finest sand, beach sand, so gives it a bit of, a sort of mix of textures there. So this is also going to be a bit of a speed painting tutorial. Side note, the reason why I've got this on blue tack and not in the clamp of the this painting handle here is just because this is a MDF base, so I just don't want to risk causing any damage to the corners of the base with the the pressure from the little clamp here. That's all. So this is going to be a speed painting tutorial as well. I've got about I think it's about 120 infantry miniatures just like this to paint. 40 cavalry, and then everything else in the army, like the war machines, the bolt throwers, the treemen, all that kind of thing. So I want to get them painted quickly, but I want them to be painted to a nice tabletop standard. So you may have painted tabletop standard as or the kind of the very bottom rung of speed painting, if you will, which is to just hit it with the base colours and then give it a wash of Agrax Shade or something like that, and that's job done. That's fine. That works just as well. But what we're going to do here is we're going to use a couple of tricks, a couple of tips that will achieve the aim of having this thing speed painted, but at the same time just knock it up a little notch to the sort of next level. So we're going to use things that save us time but set us up further down the road on this paint job to have a good effect. So the first thing that I'm going to do is hit this with a spray primer, and this is going to be sort of the first rule, if you will, first guideline for the speed painting job, and that is to pick a spray primer that is going to work for the colour palette that you choose, and to choose a colour palette that is going to tie in together and works with that spray primer. So it's a bit of a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, if you will. So for instance, on this one, this guy here, I'm going to spray prime with Army Painter Dragon Red, and I will be back when it's done, and that will enable me to sort of explain a little more about how the colours are going to tie into that spray primer. So I'll be back when he is primed. Okay, so there we have it. He is now primed with the Dragon Red, and what we've done here is we've selected a colour for our spray primer that serves two purposes in terms of our goal of speed painting. First of all, it is a base colour on which all the other colours that we're going to use can paint over the top of and actually complement well. So that's obviously other reds, anything that's kind of a warm colour like gold, the flesh tones, browns, that kind of thing. They all cover nicely over a red base colour. That's you can do that quite comfortably. And secondly, it's also our big cheat because we've used a spray primer that is a colour which a significant portion of the model is going to be in the end anyway, and in this case it's the robes. Okay, so the robes on this guy, I'm going to basically leave this Dragon Red. Okay, so actually we've already done quite a nice portion of the miniature is already base coated. The others I'll show you, I'll go through. So we've got the same paint pot colour of the Dragon Red just for touching up if we need to. We are going to use our Mornfang brown for some of the leather parts. I've taken Rhinox hide as well, just another brown tone. If you have a model that's got sort of leathers and wooden components, so for instance the spear here, use two different browns just to give yourself no hardly any more work, but it gives you a bit more variation on the model. We have got our Cadian flesh tone for the face, Retributor armor for the gold parts, and for the hair we've got Bala brown. Okay, so all these are, as I said, still browns, reds, warm colours that golds, flesh tones that will all go over this red primer just fine. We're sort of in the same colour hue, I guess, if that's the correct terminology, and that's really sort of the ticket to pulling off a speed painting job that is just that little level above the sort of standard base coat and wash, and that's what we're going for. Okay, so we are going to now start applying these base colours, and I'll be right back when we're ready to start that. Okay, here we are then, guys, ready to start applying the base colours. So we're going to start, as you often do, with the innermost layer of the model, which is the flesh areas. As I said, we're going to be using Cadian flesh tone for this. So all I'm going to do is get in there and start painting the face. And the reason why we paint inside to out is because when I inevitably catch anything I shouldn't with the paint, there's a stray bristle here I can see off my brush which might do that. I can tidy it up. See, I've got the shield here already, so as you can see, mistakes are a natural part of the painting process. So if you make mistakes, don't worry about it, everyone does. There's just a small area of like the neck here. Not to get in there, make sure that gets caught. Quick look at the other side of the helmet, that's fine. And then we've just got the hands. Okay, so I'll just make sure that I've tidied up all those flesh areas off camera, and I'll be back when I'm happy. Okay, so there I've managed to just get all the flesh parts painted, which were a little tricky to do from behind the camera, and we're going to go on to the gold. Now, for this I've got Liberator Gold, as I said, and we're just going to start applying this right on there. Liberator Gold was actually a contender for the spray primer itself because there is also a lot of gold on this miniature, but I ultimately decided basically that gold would go over red better than red would go over gold, so there you have it. The coverage is just one of these things where if I miss a little here and there with the gold over the red, for example, you see in this little section here, once we apply the wash, it will look a little bit more natural than if it was the other way around and it was a red panel, with a bit of gold showing through. wouldn't quite look all that right. So again, I'm going to go ahead and finish up all the gold bits. Basically all the armour on this guy is gold. He certainly is for this purpose anyway, and I'll be back when that's done. Alrighty, so there's the gold applied. As you can see, it's a nice rich gold. Granted, it's a base paint from Citadel colour anyway, so it's going to cover nicely, but you can see that that red has given it a really nice rich primer to go off. So there's only a few little areas that need some brown on this, but I'm going to go in with the leather first. So for this, it's the Mournfang brown, the lighter of the two browns that I'm using. So we've just got a little piece here inside the arm where we've got some leather wrapping. And that just heads up around the upper arm and the lower shoulder here. You can see there's a little padded inner armour or something there. So I'll just catch that with the Mournfang brown. And we've got the shoes down here. Okay, so again, I'll catch those off camera, and then I'm going to switch to the darker brown, the Rhinox hide, for the parts that are going to be wooden. So that's the spear handle, and also the rear of the shield. I don't want to leave that out. That's going to be in the dark brown tone as well. Okay, so again, I'll finish that off and be back when that is done. Alright, so here he is with all the brown sections done. I also went ahead and did the hair with the Bellow Brown. Get that to paste. So the last thing to do is the only part of the model that isn't within this sort of warm reddish range that we've started with, and that is the spear tip. Now, from a speed painting perspective, obviously you leverage an awful lot of the detail that you get out of your washes, and for that purpose you don't want to start too dark with your base colour. So I'm going for a mid-silver to start this spear tip off rather than a darker one, and for that purpose we've just got plate mail metal from War Paints. You know, I'm going to use a shade to bring this whole model to life anyway, but we don't want to have to highlight all the way up from a really darkened down tone. I want to hit it with a wash, and then I want to put one highlight on this at most, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, so here we are now at the stage where all of the base colours on this miniature are now filled in. So now we're at the stage where we come to wash the miniature, and just like how we use a spray primer that complements all the other colours that we're going to use, we're going to do the same with the wash. Okay, we're going to use a wash that will complement all of these colours, and that basically every colour that we've applied here can be washed with the same colour. Obviously, we don't want to be applying different washes for the purpose of speed painting. So what I'd like with this one is I'd like to stay in that sort of reddish area, but also I want it to be a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Agrax Earthshade and Reikland Fleshshade, and I'm going to mix those two, just half and half, 50-50 mix. Okay, so for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to do that on my palette here, but when it comes to me painting the batch painting, the whole army, I will pre-mix a pot of this because there are quite a few of these guys to get through. Yeah, that looks good. So away we go. Just going to apply that over the whole miniature, and you can sort of directly see on that gold there, it is darkening the recesses as we want it to do as a wash, but it does have that reddish hint to it as well, which is ideal. I will manipulate this round so that there's no pooling. I'll get this whole guy done, and when this wash is dry, we will proceed to the highlight. Okay, so back when that's done. We're now at the stage where the wash has dried. We've got those nice shadows, and we're keeping the same tone throughout the model as we wanted to keep. I've also gone ahead and painted the base here. I figured that when it comes to the factory line that I'll be setting up for all these guys, I would have painted the base in the Rhinox hide at that point. So I've gone ahead and done that as well. I skipped one little step for the video, and that is just a little touch up. So anywhere I got a little bit of gold where there should be red, or brown where there should be gold, etc. I just sort of touched those up. That took 2 seconds. So now we're going to start highlighting the miniature. Again, you may sort of view tabletop standard as a base coat and a wash, and in which case that's been achieved already for you. But the whole point of this tutorial was with the spray we did, saving our time on the cloak, and building up on top of that with the kind of the richness of colour that we got off that. We are speed painting, but with a little extra pizzazz. So let's go for some highlights now, and for the gold I'm going to use here Liberator Gold. This is a layer paint. It's quite a loose paint, so I'm going to wipe off the excess on a paper towel and just use it as a kind of dry brush highlight on the shield first of all. I do like Liberator Gold as a highlight for the gold because it's that sort of halfway house to silver. Which brings out a nice highlight for the gold. So happy with that. Okay, so I'll just go ahead, highlight the rest of the gold off camera, and I'll be back when it's time for the next highlight. Okay, there we have it. Nice highlight on the gold. That's done. Again, if we were doing a sort of more in-depth job on these, we may have built back up the Retributor armor before we highlighted with the Liberator Gold, but let's just give ourselves a break and skip that step. And it was just a dry brush job. I'm not picking out individual chain links. This is speed painting, but when this guy is stood with 20, well, 19 others, you won't mind that. So next up, we're going to highlight the leather parts, and for that, the sections I did in Mornfang Brown, I'm going to use Monster Brown from War Paints. And in fact, the sections I painted in the dark brown, the spear handle and the rear of the shield, I'm actually just going to leave them. I'm not even going to bother highlighting them for the sake of a single line to highlight, the spear. Let's leave it, give ourselves a break, And remember that this is speed painting. Let's kind of go upside down for this bit. There we go. It is tough to hit these parts with the camera there. Okay. Just as so. Again, I will deal with those without the camera in the way and be right back. Okay, so there we are. Now I filled in a couple of steps here because for a start I forgot the number one rule, which is to work from inside to out, and therefore I needed to go in and do the face and the hands, which I highlighted with the Kislev flesh. The leather parts, as I said, was the War Paints Monster Brown. I hit the base there, the gravel sections, with a little bit of this Citadel Dry Tyrant Skull to highlight that, and the hair on the back of the head there, for the most part, I used Screaming Skull. This one here, just to give that a highlight. So now we are just going to do the spear tip. And all we're going to do is hit that with a little bit of Runefang Steel. There we are. A little bit of Runefang, just to highlight that metal. To it, just to brighten up that spearhead, like so. And then we are finally on to the workhorse of this model, which was the red cloak. And to highlight that, we're going to go in with a little bit of Evil Sun Scarlet, and I'm going to make sure this is watered down quite well on the palette, because I don't want it to be too stark when I highlight with this. I am just going to bring up the sort of edges of this robe with this red. So let's have a look. Just like that. A real slight highlight. Okay, I'll do that all over the robe, and then we'll pretty much be there. So there we have it, our completed Galadhrim Warrior. I've just added a little Midland tuft on the base. And one thing I forgot to mention was that I just popped a little dot of Korax white on his teeth, just to bring those out. So he's going to look just fine, I think, in a regiment of 20. But let's go over the sort of key tips that we have applied here in speed painting this guy. So first of all, we applied a base primer, which serves two purposes. First of all, it is a colour on the model somewhere, which is quite heavily present. So here it's the red on the cloak. I didn't even have to apply any more red or anything like that. That was already done, job done. And secondly, it is a tone, a good base for the other colours that we've selected to use for the model. We've kept within the same range so that they've got that kind of rich underlay from that primer. So the golds, the browns, the skin tones, they all work together. And it gives you a little bit more richness than it would do if you just painted over a black primer and then washed it. So we saved ourselves some time in using the red primer, and we paid that time back in just having a little extra highlight. We skipped the kind of rebasing step, so sometimes you might, for instance, base with the Retributor Armor Gold, wash it, and then bring the Retributor Armor back up again before you do the Liberator Gold highlight. We skipped that. We just went straight onto the Liberator Gold highlight, straight onto the brown highlight and the hair and the red as well. And so we've got a really nice contrast there between the colours, which I think, for a tabletop standard, has served us pretty well. I'm happy with this, and I hope you are too, guys. I hope you've sort of managed to glean something from this, and there will be plenty more tutorials in the future. So please do subscribe, give us that subscribe, and keep watching. Thank you very much.